So the first question of any good journalist is, would you please say and spell your name for us?
My name is Tracey Colson Antee. It's Tracey like a boy, Tracey, and my last name is Antee, Antee.
Thank you very much. Tracey, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Creole country in North Louisiana, in Natchitoches, Louisiana. I was born and raised there, and left probably when I was about 17 years old.
Okay. So in and around Natchitoches or in Natchitoches?
Yeah, I actually grew up in Natchitoches. My dad is originally from the Cane River area, about 20 minutes south of Natchitoches, which is one of the oldest Creole communities in Louisiana. My mom was born and raised in Los Angeles, and so she migrated to Louisiana. And that was the community that I grew up in. Even though we lived in Natchitoches proper, a lot of our family and their friends were around the Cane River area, so we spent a lot of time down there as well.
Okay. What was it like growing up in that community?
It was very different. I feel like I had a really great experience because of the fact that I was not only growing up in this very multicultural, diverse community, one, but secondly, that my mom was always very active and very vocal about things that she was very passionate about. And a lot of that was Creole culture. And so my mom, through volunteer work and then later helped to establish the Creole Heritage Center at Northwestern. So I grew up not only under the tutelage of my parents, like most people are, but also with multiple academics that studied cultural preservation, historical preservation, lots of anthropologists, lots of historians, authors, and artists. So I had this very unique and interesting childhood of being exposed to a lot of things that others weren't. And then my dad, his experience growing up in that area, what he learned, what his story was, really taught me how important story is and to preserve and learn and share that story. And that's what my dad does now. He's almost 80 years old and he's a storyteller and he does tours and he's kind of that person that people go to say, do you remember this person or do you remember? And he can tell you a story about every tree, house, part of the river down there. So that was an experience that I value so much because as I grew into doing more work with preserving Creole culture and promoting it and understanding that there were people all over the country that their parents, grandparents, or their descendants were from Louisiana and from that culture, never had those same experiences that I did. So that's why I hope that I can share a lot of that with different people.
That's really cool. I know the word Creole gets used a lot and probably misused a lot and then used, I know it's all over the spectrum, but I'm kind of a dummy. Can you give me a sort of introduction to Creole culture or what you mean when you say the Creole community and Creole culture and heritage?
And I think that you're absolutely right that there's a million definitions and everybody wants that very clear cut, fit in a box definition. And I think that's what makes Creole so unique is that you can't just type it out in words in a couple of sentences and stick it in a box. It's very much a culture. It's very much an ethnicity that has been here for generations on top of generations. And the story of a Creole family from North Louisiana is different from the story of a Creole family from South Louisiana. And I think it's really important that we kind of designate that and are aware of that. It's the same thing with French language. Someone is going to speak a certain way because of the community that they were raised in, will speak French in that way, whereas it will sound totally different and the same words will be used but will have different meanings in another area. But the way that I explain what Creole is, because that's what I get asked a lot, is we are a culture of people that we were original to here. We are Native American, we are Spanish, we are African American, we are French, and we are a whole bunch of other things also included in that. And I think that what Creoles did throughout Louisiana was to pull different things from each one of those cultures, from each part of them, and create foodways and create languages and create traditions that have carried on through the generations and been passed down. I think it's really important that we identify culturally and that we are educated on what that is, and Creole is no different. We, as a family, you know, my mom really took that stance of wanting to educate and promote it because she did grow up in California. She heard all the stories from her parents, specifically from her dad, who was born and raised around the Marksville area, but she had never experienced it. She had never seen it. So she had that experience coming here, and she wanted to share, this is the lifestyle, this is the culture, this is what I'm able to see and experience every day with her family back home, and it just kind of spread. But I think that we've come a long way. The early 90s is really when this kind of Creole renaissance began, and there were many grants and lots of funding that was provided for the preservation and promotion of it, whether it was through language or through architecture, you know, specific buildings and structures. You know, I tell everybody Creole, you know, they're like, well, you're Creole. I'm like, yep, if you tip me over and shake me, seasoning is not going to come out the top of my head. We're more than just food, and Creole food does not mean spicy food, and Creole does not just mean food. Creole means certain family traditions. It's meeting someone that you identify and you know that's a Creole person right there, and that learning curve is gone because you know that you were raised similarly. All of the definition of what culture is, if you take those little things out, you can apply specific things about Creole culture and see that it's a true culture and it's something that should be preserved because it's such an important part of what Louisiana is, and it really makes us unique, and it sets us apart, and it identifies us as kind of this mecca for Creole people all over the world that do come and visit.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Did you go to college?
A couple of times.
A couple of times?
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
done that
I
myself.
went, I left Natchitoches in 1995, and I came to UL when it was still USL.
Yeah.
That was that long ago. And I went to school for a little bit, and then I actually joined the military. I was in the United States Navy for a number of years before I left. And then just recently as in the past couple of years, I've returned to school, and I'm going to Northwestern State University to get my bachelor's in psychology right now.